Hello, hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining in for today's session. My name is Ram Kumar. I'm from Tally Solutions, and I'll be your host for today. As you all might be knowing, it's a very interesting, session that we have planned for you today. Everybody might have been waiting for this session just to know all about Tally is prepared for e-invoicing and how you can use Tally for e-invoicing purposes and things like that. I'll be just taking you through a overall comprehensive view of how Tally is prepared for e-invoicing, how the invoice is generated. E-invoicing, as you all know, this is going to be a very big leap in compliance. So if you have seen from previously, we had the VAT launched, and then we had the corporate tax, we have the e-filing that we have launched, and now we are coming at e-invoicing. Yeah. So just to give a quick overview, what is e-invoicing and things like that. So universal coverage, all businesses registered in the UAE must adopt e-invoicing for both B2B and B2G transactions. And the Tally's e-invoicing feature is built on Peppol five-corner model, which is a proven Peppol framework with structured, standardized invoice formats recognized globally. Accredited service providers, Peppol certified access point providers can apply for FTA accreditation to facilitate transmission. So as you all might be knowing, Tally is already a Peppol certified software. So once we are listed in the FTA website, you can select Tally as your ASP, and you can start your invoicing procedures as well. Real-time validation, invoices are validated by ASPs in real time and submitted directly to the Federal Tax Authority. So there is no delay or anything. So it's a real-time exchange of invoices that happens between companies and the FTA portal. Complete transparency, end-to-end audit trails provide full transparency and traceability for all stakeholders. So there is a all reference numbers and all those kinds of things that is generated, wherein there is complete transparency, and you can track all your invoices that you have generated and things like that. Couple of benefits that is gaining from the invoicing: faster invoice processing. As I've mentioned, it's automated validation and transmission, which eliminate delays from manual handling and postal delivery. 100% consistency, perfect alignment between invoices and accounting books, remove reconciliation headaches, low compliance overheads. It reduces administrative burden, fees, staff time for value added activities. Since it's all online, and it takes up very less time, and it's all real time, there are a lot of advantages which you can gain from e-invoicing. Instant audit trails, comprehensive digital records provide immediate access to complete transaction histories. Standardized training, since it's all a unified platform and very well structured, you can train your staff, and you can onboard them pretty much very easily, making it very efficient process as well. So it's not just an compliance upgrade, it's a efficiency revolution. So there are a lot of hiccups, there are a lot of time that is saved through all this invoicing feature that is coming up. Just to give a brief and understanding the mandate. So the scope of obligation. So the system applies to all the persons conducting business in UAE for B2B and B2G transaction. And the requirements are, both the seller and the buyer should appoint a ASP. So ASP is nothing but an accredited service provider. In this case, it will be Tally. Issue and transmit an electronic invoice for every business transaction. So every business transactions, or each invoice that is generated, it is electronically generated, and it is uploaded immediately with the FTA portal as well. Issue an electronic credit note for cancellation, reductions in consideration, refund, or administrative numerical errors. So once, since it is all live happening, and it is all generated immediately, in case of there is any cancellation of invoices, or in case of there is any change that you have to do, and some numerical errors or some administrative errors happen, you need to issue an electronic credit note for all the cancellations and all the mistakes that you've done. So there is no cancellation of invoices. So once you generate an invoice, that's it, your invoice is generated, and you cannot delete or you cannot cancel the invoice. In case if you want to do something for that, you will have to issue a credit note for that. And ensure all electronic documents contain the required data fields. So there is almost 51 fields that is required in the invoice format that is there, which I'll show you in some time on what is that 51 things that you need to have. And the standard, the new system is based on the international open Peppol standard, which ensures in interoperability, facilitates cross-border trade, and enhance security and high data integrity. So Peppol, as it was mentioned, it's a international standard for e-invoicing, and Tally is Peppol certified. So there is no need to worry on the data security and transfer interoperability of invoices as well. Now, the implementation timelines is what again I'll just explain. So, for business categories who are less than 50 million, their ASP selection should be on or before 31st July 2026, and their system should be ready by 1st Jan 2027. So, what this means is that as a business, if your revenue or if your annual revenue is less than, more than 50 million, your ASP selection should be by 31st July 2026. That is that, which means you need to select through which ASP, which accredited service provider you are going to be doing the invoicing with. In this case, it will be Tally, and your system should be ready by 1st Jan 2027. This is for businesses whose annual revenue is more than 50 million. Now, phase two, small and medium business whose annual revenue is less than 50 million, they have time till 2027, wherein they need to select a ASP before 31st March 2027, and their system should be ready by 1st July 2027. Yeah, and phase three is all government entities, which is 31st March 2027, and their system readiness by October 27. So as you can see, the timeline, it is all going to be in 2027, but at the same time, you need to be ready with the ASP selection, and your system should be ready for 50 million above customers. It's 31st July. For small and medium business, which has less than 50 million, it is 31st March. And for all government entities, it is 31st March 2027. Yeah, so these are the timelines of the e-invoice ASP selection and the system readiness as well. And in the meantime, there are some companies that may be selected as a pilot testing with the FTA. So all these companies who are above 50 million above companies whose ASP selection is due this 31st July 2026, and the system readiness is by the 1st Jan 27. In the meantime, FTA might select some companies for pilot testing with their systems as well. So I hope this is the mandate that is there for e-invoicing, and I hope this is pretty much clear for everyone. Now let's understand what is this Peppol five corner model. So unlike in so many of you might be knowing that in Saudi also we have a e-invoicing feature where it is directly communicating with the Zatka portal. So here we have something called as a five corner model. So wherein there are five stakeholders, or five channels through which the entire flow goes through. So this is how the entire e-invoicing structure goes. So in step one we have the seller who will generate a e-invoice, and in step 2 it is validated and it is transmitted to the FTA authority. So in this case, say for example you are using Tally and you have generated an invoice, Tally will validate whether all the required fields are there, whether all the details which is given as per the FTA, it is there in the invoice. And if it is verified, at the same time it goes to the FTA portal also. So the moment you generate an invoice, it is automatically generated and it is gone to the FTA. And if the seller's ASP is validated, it goes to the buyer's ASP. At the same time it goes to the tax authority as well. So there are again, once the seller generates the invoice, it goes to the FTA. At the same time it gets validated by the seller's ASP, and it goes to the buyer's ASP. So in the buyer's ASP, it can be Tally, it can be any other software which is accredited by the FTA. Now once their software is validated the invoice, it goes to the buyer accepts, and again it goes to the FTA. So in a total of three times it goes to the FTA. So the moment you generate an invoice from the seller side, it goes to the FTA. At the same time it gets validated by your ASP. If everything goes okay, it goes to the buyer's ASP, and the buyer's ASP again it sends it to the FTA. And once everything is validated, it goes to the buyer who then accepts the invoice, and again it goes to the FTA as well. So this is what the Peppol five corner model is all about, and this is how the invoice flow. Yeah. So just to again reiterate, so you have the seller who generates a e-invoice. At the same time, the moment he generates e-invoice, it goes to the FTA portal and it gets validated at the same time by the ASP, which is in this case Tally. After which it goes to the buyer's ASP in case if he is using Tally, that will be Tally, or he can be any other he can be using any other software which is accredited by the ASP. Once that is done, it goes to the FTA authority again, and it sends back to the buyer, wherein the buyer has to accept the invoice, and it again goes to the FTA portal as well. So this is how the Peppol five corner model kind of work, and this is how the entire invoice flow and everything is going to happen in the Peppol five corner model. Yeah. So now India's leading e-invoicing solution now is getting ready for UAE as well. So as you all know, Tally is Peppol Access certified, and will be soon be listed as ASP in the FTA portal as well. So FTA, there has been some delay from the FTA's side. So we are expecting the listing to be done in the next the updation cycle. So that will be done. Yeah. So UAE invoices update. So as I was mentioning, large revenue businesses who are above more than 50 million AED, their ASP selection should be before 31st July 2026, and the system should be ready by 1st Jan 27. And SMEs whose revenue is less than 50 million AED, their ASP selection should be 31st March 2027, which is next year, and their system readiness should be 1st July 2027. And Tally readiness, we are already Peppol certified. We are in the process of getting our name listed in the FTA portal, so that can happen in the next FTA's website updation. So they just update their website once in a month. So once the page is updated, you can see our name as listed in the FTA portal as well. Great. So let's dive into the product, and I'll just show you a brief, screenshots of how we have developed the product and to support invoicing. Yeah. So first I'll show you what is exchange of sales invoices. So here you can see there is a sales invoice that is generated from here. So normal sales invoice voucher that is there, and you can see once I accept this, it will prompt me with a screen asking, do you want to generate e-invoice? Now obviously I'll have to click yes. What I'll later on show you what happens if I select no as well. Yeah. So if I select yes, you can see here exchanging data with e-invoicing system. It all happens real time. There is no delays or anything. So once this is done, you can see here the information coming as invoice uploaded successfully for processing. The details are updated in the transaction. Yeah. So once this is done, you can see here at the same screen, there is a option given here, provide VAT and e-invoices details. So if I just make that option as yes, you can see here e-invoice details. So e-invoice status is in progress. UUID. Now this is the unique identification ID of the Peppol network. Yeah, so this is given by the Peppol, and this is very important. This is unique to each transaction, and this is what is required for the FTA to kind of validate and to keep track of all our invoices and everything. So this is a unique ID that is given by the Peppol network, and this is what the invoice status will look like. So invoice status is in progress. We have the unique ID that is mentioned, what is the date of exchange and what is the time of exchange as well. Now on the right hand side, you can see, so there is something called as status details. Now if I just click on status details, you can see C2 generated, C3 in progress, and C5 in progress. So it is nothing but the flow of the invoice that is happening through the Peppol network. So C2 is generated, which means the invoice is generated. C3 is in progress, which means the buyer's ASP is getting validated. C5 in progress, which means the buyer has to accept it and send it back to FTA. So all these steps and all this progress, whether it is generated, whether it is progress, whether it is on hold or something like that, everything will be shown up in real time, and you can verify and you can view it easily by step how and where your invoice is. Now again, these are the mandatory fields of e-invoice. So these are the things that should be mandatorily be there in Tally invoices. This is as per the FTA. If any of these fields are not available in the invoice, automatically the invoice gets rejected, and it comes back to the person who has generated the invoice. Yeah. So invoice details, seller details, buyer details, document totals, tax breakdown, invoice line. So there are multiple line items also that is mentioned under all these particular details. So these are the mandatory details that you need to have on your invoice to generate a successful e-invoice. If any of these items or if any of these things are missing in the invoice, it will reject the invoice, and it will come back and you will have to generate a new invoice, or if something is missing, then you will have to give a credit note and things like that. Yeah, so I'll just pause here for 1 minute. Maybe the attendees can just go through and just take 1 minute, and we can just go through, and then we'll continue with the session. Yeah. Yeah, so I hope this is clear. So these are the mandatory fields that is required to generate a successful e-invoice. Yeah, so I'll just move on to this, and this is what e-invoice sample will look like. So here you can see what is the tax invoice, what is the unique identification number of this particular invoice, what is the date and time of exchange, and your basic your details and the buyer details. And you can see here what is the Peppol ID, what is the TIN ID, what is the TRN number, and all those mandated fields are there here. Yeah, so all this is just a sample invoice sample that is there. So here you can see what is the UID, what is the date and time of exchange, Peppol ID, and all those kinds of things. So as mentioned in the previous slide, there is almost 51 items that needs to be mandated. So all those things should be here. In case if it is not there, the invoice gets rejected. Now, discount in the item. Now, say for example, you generated an invoice. You wanted to give discount to a particular, supplier or customer or whatever it is, due to many reasons. He might be regularly buying from you, or maybe it's a normal new shop discount or something like that. So, in case if you want to give a discount in the item, how will you manage this with the e-invoicing feature? So here you can see there is a particular transaction that I have done over here, and I've mentioned a 2% discount on this particular item. Now FTA wants to know, like, why you're giving a discount to this particular person, or maybe in this invoice, why is there a discount? Yeah. So once you press enter, a list of reasons comes in. Now this particular set of reasons, it is given by the FTA. It is not given by the Tally. It is not given by Peppol or Tally or anything. This is as per the FTA guidelines. So these reasons are provided by FTA. You need to select any of these reasons if you're giving a particular discount. Yeah. So in case if you are not selecting, then it doesn't qualify as a e-invoice, and it get rejected. So this list of reasons is given by FTA, and if you are giving a particular discount to a particular supplier or customer in a specific invoice, you need to mention what is the reason that you're giving discount for. So here you can see multiple reasons are there: bonus for workers, military status, and then there is discount, there is fixed long term, temporary, standard. So these reasons are given by the FTA, wherein you have to select these reason, and you have to submit the invoice. Once you select this reason, it automatically goes through all the same process as I shown initially, and the invoice gets submitted. But here the main issue, the main important thing is you have to select the reason for why you're giving discount. Bulk exchange of e-invoices. What are the situations for this? Now, say for example, there may be many cases where accountants generate invoice, and the owner wants to kind of verify the invoices first, and then only they need to submit. So in this case, you will have to wait, and you don't need to submit the invoices now. And after some verification and things like that, say for example, an accountant entered some 10-20 invoices. Now the owner wants to go through all the invoices, verify it, and then only needs to submit for invoicing. We can do that. How is it possible? Let me just show you. Yeah, so in the configuration screen, there is an option called send e-invoices details after saving voucher. So now what happens is, once the moment the invoice is generated, it automatically gets generated, and it sends to the FTA portal. Now send e-invoices details after saving voucher. If you make this option no, you can just wait, and you don't have to live submit the invoice. So here what happens is, now again I'll just it's a normal sales invoice that I've made over here. I'll just make this option yes. I'll just accept this invoice. Yeah. Now in the exchange, there is an option called send for e-invoicing. Now here, if you click on this report, you will get all the pending reports, all the pending invoices that is there for pending to send for e-invoicing. Now if I click on this, you can see here all this pending for invoice generation. Almost 8 invoices are there. And as a owner, I can just go through these invoices, see if everything is correct, and all these invoices are details, and everything is correct. Once everything is done, I can either just click on send online, and everything goes online at once. Or in case if I just have to select only some invoices and send that currently for re-invoicing, I can do that also. So here at the bottom you can see there is a space select. So you can select only specific invoices which you want to send for e-invoicing. The rest, you just have to verify one more time. So you can just select, whichever invoices you want to select, and then you can click on send online, which, sends for e-invoicing. Now, once you click on send online, it is again the same process where, it again submits for e-invoicing, and you will get a notification and, your unique identification number as well. Yeah. So this is on the bulk invoicing, in case if you need to verify invoices and send multiple invoices at now e-invoice reports. Now there are multiple reports that is given for e-invoicing as well, same like, how in VAT report it is there. Yeah. So same like your VAT return, you have the same some report for e-invoicing as well, wherein it shows uncertain transactions where, some corrections are needed, pending for invoice generation, voucher information modified after exchange, and things like that. So let's just see uncertain transactions, which it says, some corrections are needed. So I'll just click and see what it is. So once I click on that, you can see here there are a couple of invoices where VAT registration details of the company are not it is not valid or not specified. Unit of measurement is not mapped to the unit of quantity code. Nature of transaction and taxable value, and it's modified in voucher. Mismatch due to tax amount modified in voucher. So there are a lot of, issues that is prompting, and it is coming up over here. So you need to correct all this, and, you can correct all this information and, submit for re-invoicing, so that, nothing gets rejected, or, you don't get a fine or something like that. So once everything is viewed and once everything is corrected, you can obviously drill down. You can see here, there is VAT registration details or company not specified. There are almost 39 invoices. So if you just click on that, it will show you all the list of invoices that is, there are error against these invoices. Yeah. So that is one report that, where you can see all your corrections and transactions which need attention. Pending for invoice generation, there is almost 11 invoices. So if I just click on that, you can see here there are almost 11 invoices which, which is pending to be submitted. So in case if you want to know how many invoices are pending to be submitted, have that view also as well. So couple of things on how to prepare for e-invoicing as a company. As I was mentioning, what we have shown here is just a overview, and, how Tally is getting ready for e-invoicing, and what are the features that we have given for e-invoicing. Once our name is listed on the FTA website, we'll be having a detailed training session on, how each transaction is taken up, and, a much more detailed way. So this is just to give an overall glimpse and, overall understanding of how invoicing works, what is Peppol five corner model, and how in Tally, the e-invoicing is taken up as well. So just to give a couple of guidelines on how to prepare for invoicing: verify your company information, your company name, address, TRN are accurately captured in Tally, which is exactly as registered with the FTA. Validate customer and supplier records, collect and update TRNs and address detail from all domestic customers and suppliers. Accurate data is a must. If you don't have accurate data, you cannot generate successful invoicing, which again can lead to rejection and, fines and things like that. Review and classify zero rated and export transaction. The new invoicing law mandates full invoicing even for wholly zero rated supplies. Review your sales and export ledgers and ensure all items and transactions master use the correct zero rated VAT classification. Understand the role of ASP. So Tally will be an ASP and play a role of intermediary between the seller, buyer, and the FTA. And all you just need to be familiar with how the Peppol five corner model works and things like that. So Tally is an ASP. So all Tally customers can select Tally as the ASP. They can register through Tally, and, you can onboard yourself for the invoicing feature once the product is out and, rolled out to all the customers. So you don't need to worry on anything. Our product is fully prepared. Adopt corrective practices early. Avoid altering invoices after they are saved. You cannot do any alteration. You cannot delete any invoices. You cannot do anything. You need to issue a proper credit note and debit note for any corrections. This is as per the FTA guidelines and invoicing norms. Keep your Tally updated. Ensure you're on the latest release. If you are on the old release, please do renew. If you have a latest, if you have the TSS valid, it's free. You can migrate and, come to the latest release, which is 7.1, which will be coming up in a few days, where, all this invoicing feature comes. And if you are on the old release, please do note that, invoicing is supported only from release 7.1. So please be updated on the latest release, and ensure that, the invoicing ready. You're also invoicing ready as well. Train your staff. Obviously, you need to train your staff. You need to ensure that the staffs, accountants, everybody goes through the proper workflow before you go live. Ensure you have a proper checklist of how to maintain the invoices, what all details are needed to be done in the invoices, how to enter the details, and all those kinds of things. So this is very important, as this can, if it is not done properly, you may lead to hefty fines and rejection of e-invoices as well. Now, I'll just pause here for a minute, and I'll just see if there is any question answers are there, and I'll try to answer this as much as possible. Yeah. Yeah. So I can see some questions over here. Mr. Biju Kumar, is there any payment for Tally ASP? So, sir, I mean, we are not finalized the commercials yet on how it is going to be, but if you have the Tally TSS valid, then if you have the TSS valid, once the new release comes out, you can easily migrate and start using the latest features. But we have not finalized any particular commercials as well, which will come up in a couple of days, and we'll inform it to you as well, sir. If buyer doesn't accept the invoice or any dispute in invoice, how the invoice will establish in FTA portal? Yeah, so Mr. Harish, so say for example you generated an invoice and the buyer doesn't accept the invoice, it gets rejected and it comes back to you. Yeah, but in the FTA portal it is gone already. So there'll be, it will be shown as pending for approval or pending for submission, wherein you will have to see what is the error and things like that, and maybe you will have to issue a credit note or debit note as well. So there is no option of cancellation or deletion or anything. Once you hit the invoice, it is done. It is directly generated, and it has gone to the FTA portal and simultaneously to the buyer ASP as well. If at all something happens with the buyer ASP, it rejects, it will come back to you, wherein again you will have to take the appropriate steps. Could you please confirm whether your ASP support buyer side e-invoicing, including receipt of supplier invoices via the network? Also, what validation checks are performed, TRN calculation, and can be validated? So yeah, Mr. Suleiman Khan. So as I was mentioning, so we work in a Peppol five corner model, which ensures that once the seller generates an invoice, it is validated by Tally as who is an ASP, and it goes to FTA portal. At the same time, it goes to the buyer ASP also. Now the buyer ASP, say for example, if something happens and the invoice gets rejected, it comes back to you. It comes back to you. So that validation happens from the buyer ASP also, and it comes back to you. And also, what validation checks are performed? So as I was mentioning, as I've shown, there is almost 51 items that needs to be checked. There is almost 51 checklist that needs to be there in the invoice. So if any of those 51 details are not there in the invoice gets rejected, and it comes back to Tally or you. So that is how it is. Mr. Shahir, FTA portal approval in how many minutes? Sir, it's all live. There is no delay or anything. The moment you generate an invoice, first goes to FTA portal, it gets updated over there. You will get a notification also saying that the invoice is submitted. So it's all real time, and there is no delay or anything particular for this thing, sir. How to connect to FTA portal through Tally? Please recall, sir. So that onboarding process we have not shown, because since we have not, we have not yet, our name is not yet listed on the FTA portal. So once it is listed, we'll have a detailed session on how you need to do the onboarding process as well. Yeah. Yeah, so hi, Mr. Sujish Surendran. So yeah, you don't need to register as of now, but we recommend that to get the system ready, and to personally, for as a company, to be ready, we recommend that to register starting now itself. But it's not mandatory, since it is 50 million in 2024. So that is not required as of now. But as a company, we suggest that to be ready as of now. So, Mr. Abhay, what if a registered customer is not e-invoice ready and we have already generated? Sir, you cannot do that, because you need to have a Peppol ID, which is used for all these e-invoicing and exchange of invoice to FTA portal. So you cannot generate a invoice if you have, I mean, if you don't have a Peppol ID. Yeah, so Mr. Suleiman, for purchase invoices from suppliers, is there any reconciliation mechanism in your ASP? Yes, we do have that. So once you generate a purchase invoice, it gets checked, and all the reconciliation happens from the ASP as well. So yeah, Nisamuddin, if the buyer rejects the invoice, what should we do? Basically, you need to understand why the invoice was rejected, and for against that, you'll have to raise a credit note for that invoice. Mr. Miss Fasata, my company have sale of 3 million, and if our customers have a sale of more than 50 million, is it mandatory for us to issue them invoice? No, it is not mandatory for you to issue invoice. Mr. Subish, sir, who will create this Peppol ID generated and when? Sir, the Peppol ID is generated by Peppol network. It is, back. It's all automated. We cannot. I mean, it's not done by anyone. It is a system who generates all that. And the moment you raise the invoice, the Peppol ID also gets generated at the same time. Okay, Mr. Sai, there is one. How do we get notified when a supplier sends an invoice? So for that, you need to have a TSS validity so that a supplier sends an invoice, it gets notified, and you can just cross check if all the information is there, and then you can submit for invoicing. Mr. Mohammed Aid, how long we can delay invoicing? It is only for 14 days, so we cannot keep a hold after 14 days. You have to submit within 14 days. So sir, Mr. Mohammed, our invoice is perfect, but buyer still rejects. So what will be the effect? Sir, it won't happen like that because in the buyer side and in the seller side also there is a ASP which validates all these 51 mandatory fields. So it is not like a person is manually rejecting. He cannot do that. It's the ASP or the system that rejects it. So if the 51 mandatory fields are there, then it will not get rejected. And if it is getting rejected, then that means there is some error in the invoice, some fields are missing. You will have to check with them. So it is not manually a person rejecting it, it is the system that is rejecting. So it will not happen like that. If your invoice is perfect, it will be sent as a invoice only. Yeah, Mr. Wrinkle. So yeah, for you, since your company's turnover is more than 50 million, yeah, you will have to select the ASP by 31st of July, and you need to have your system ready by first Jan.
Wrinkle Makwana, just to add up to your question, in terms of whenever, let's say from 1st Jan, you're going to raise an invoice to your customer who is below 50 million and it is a B2B transaction. In this case, you will continue to raise an invoice with all the details that is mandated as per the law. But however, since your client is not registered at that moment, government has yet to roll out a transition law as to how the treatment of these invoices will be, so that as and how we go we'll get a more clarity. We'll be happy to share it with you. Mr. Mohammed, as a supplier, do we need to generate e-invoice for all kinds of buyers, any slab? Uh, E-invoice law is very clear. If you're registered business in UAE, you do fall under e-invoice law, even if you're not VAT registered vendor. And secondly, any slab, even if the invoice value is for 10 dirhams or 20 dirhams or even 10,000 dirhams or even 50 million dirhams, it doesn't matter what is the ticket size of your invoice. If it's B2B, it falls under invoicing law. And if it is B2G or G2G, it falls under invoicing law. Mr. Mohammed has asked regarding sales outside UAE, what is the requirement? So currently, since other countries may not have a Peppol framework implemented or invoice adoption in their country, it depends on case to case. So, but however, all your exports will have the basic information as per the UAE invoicing law, and then your customers, if they are under the Peppol framework, you'll have to mention their Peppol ID, or if they're not registered, then you can simply export it as a PDF and add a dummy Peppol ID which will be given by the FTA and then share it across. Mr. Nibin has asked, Tally provide an option to include ledger narration, and if so, will it appear in the e-invoice? Uh, Mr. Nibin, already Tally has an existing feature of ledger narration and printing it in the invoice. But if it is mandated as per e-invoice, then we will make it compulsory. Or if it is something that you want to do for your invoices, you're free to do that. The feature already is currently active in the product. Is it mandatory for all LLC company or there is any sales income limit, and what about export business? I believe the export business I have clarified a while ago. However, yes, if you're a body or a person or a company that is carrying out business in UAE, you fall under the e-invoice. The law is very clear. There is no limit or anything in terms of raising an e-invoice. However, the registration and implementation of e-invoice varies as per your annual revenue, above 50 million or below 50 million. Can we start invoicing from 1st Jan 2027 even if we are below 50 million? Yes, definitely. As per the UAE invoicing law, you can opt as a voluntary registration and adoption of e-invoicing well before your deadline. What about B2C customer like restaurant and hotel? Mr. Sarish, as of now, e-invoice is applicable only for business to government, and government to government invoices, and business to customer invoices will carry out as it is even now. The invoice will not be applicable on B2C invoices. Mr. Shinto has asked each company having only one Peppol ID. Mr. Shinto, it also applies whether it is a VAT group or is it a different Peppol ID for each and every company. And yes, Peppol ID will have a different, let's say it starts for one company, the code will be common, which is 2350, followed by the 10-digit TIN number of the company. So if five companies have different VAT number or TIN number, they will have a different Peppol ID. I hope that answers. Will the supplier invoice be accepted in Tally? Will it be recorded automatically? Mr. Lishoy, as of now, let's say whenever your supplier raises an invoice, it will automatically flow into Tally, where you will be having a separate report to accept it or reject it based on the content of the invoice. However, will you be able to record it automatically as a purchase, so that we will be able to provide more clarity as on how the product development phases out. Mr. Omar, regarding purchase from outside UAE, so since other countries may or may not have Peppol framework, so that more or less will not be an e-invoice. Rather, it's going to continue as it is now. But yeah, you do can go another step where you might want to ask them to mention your company's Peppol ID for all the purchase invoices from their end. Mr. Mohammed Ayed had asked how we treat cash customer. So, Mr. Mohammed, the mode of payment is not merely a factor in terms of e-invoice. As long as it's B2B, B2G, and G2G, e-invoice applies. Mr. Mohammed Sadiq has asked, please share, we are from medical industry, does we need affect this? Mr. Mohammed, there are certain exceptions to the hospitality industry as well as the airline industry. I would suggest you to get in touch with your chartered accountants or tax consultant specifically to know your business and then advise accordingly. All right, there are a lot of questions flowing in. Guys, in interest of time, so I'll be taking just a couple of questions, and then definitely you can get in touch with Team RNG for any further information. Mr. Mohammed has asked, what is the motive for invoicing rules? Sir, this is in a broader vision of the UAE, where the digitization vision as per 2031. So that is where the government wants to drive as much as possible in the region. Mr. Rajan has asked, what about sales to VAT unregistered customer? Sir, as long as it's B2B, its invoice is applicable to your unregistered customers as well. Mr. Nandu has asked, if you're accepting e-invoices from a supplier and our annual revenue is less than 10 million, still we need to choose an ASP. Mr. Nandu, it doesn't matter the revenue. Revenue only comes into play when it is for registration and adopting invoice. But for all the invoices, the value is merely not a factor. But if your invoice is less than 10 million or above 10 million, you still have to adopt and choose an ASP as per the deadline and comply with the invoicing law. Okay, let's take a last question for the day. How to issue a credit note in the same format? So as in how we go with the next step of product development and we have enough outlook on that, definitely will be more than we'll be conducting a lot of knowledge series sessions with collaborations with RNG soon. We will start learning more and showcasing, giving you a glimpse of more about it very soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Praveen. To all the attendees, as I was mentioning at the beginning, it's just a overview of what is e-invoicing, what is Peppol framework, and how Tally is ready for all this invoicing as well. So soon our name also will be listed in the FTA portal. After which we'll be having a detailed session on how to do the onboarding process, and we'll take up more of your questions as well. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for all for attending this session, and I hope it's been a very intuitive session to all. If there is any concerns or queries, please do reach out to your Tally partner RNG Software Trading. They'll be more than happy to take it up. So yeah, once again, thank you so much, and see you all in the next session. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.